balance. So I'm gonna pre-catalyze 2, and then I'm gonna get to my 3rd. The reason is, I don't know when I'm gonna have to wait to turn these over to the other side, and I don't wanna over-catalyze something too early. So watch what I do here. I'm gonna prime the guns, change the paper, change the filter, priming the guns, starting the material through the line, just checking the spray pattern. I'm gonna make sure there's nothing wrong with the tips, make sure they're nice and cleaned out. I have a second set of tips and air caps ready to go. So this way my changes are faster between cleaning these tips out and just swapping them out. It makes it a lot easier. So as you can see, the primer is starting to set up. We still have a little water in the line. What I'm waiting for is a solid color on the left side. And then once that solid color gets all the way to the end, that's when I know I have just coating in there and no water washout. I'm spraying here. It may not make sense to a lot of people, but I'm spraying at 12 PSI. 12 PSI out of a 30-to-1 or a 24-to-1. Multiply 12 PSI by 24, and that's the actual PSI I'm spraying out of here. So I'll run these, there's about 50 doors here. I'm gonna run them. It's gonna take about 6 minutes. I won't show you the video the whole time, but here we go, ready to rock and roll. All right, here are the doors and the drawers I'll be spraying first. As you can see, these are sanded. This isn't typical for me to do. This is from another painter that they asked me to do the finishing. So these have been painted twice previously. We don't do this. But this painter's decided to sand these off, which I credit because it's a pain in the neck. They were painted twice with latex paint or some coating that we're not really sure the first time. The second time was cabinet coat, which came out pretty easy. But as you can see, the gap between the panel and the frame is already covered. It's coated. There's no way to get that out of there. The homeowner understands this. If you are thinking that you have a coating that's going to get between the panel and the frame, and you have a situation like this, make sure the homeowner signs off on that because it's super important, because you're not gonna have that nice open spot between, as you can see in this panel. It's really tight, but it is open. This machine sprays it no issue. As you can see, some of here, you see a nice, these need to be primed next. Here's another MDF failure to show you what we have to avoid. My settings on the unit dry, there's 6 sunspots in here. We're gonna be setting up this, and we don't run this at 100% capacity. You run this at about 20, 21, 65, and everything changes based on the weather and the coating that you're spraying. Again, 5-6 minutes front to back. I'll show you a couple, and then we'll flip it around. The belt's gonna engage. These doors are gonna go down. First, I stagger this about 3 inches away from each other, and I do the drawers first, just like this pattern here. I have these green tape lines out. I don't want the machine to spray further than those. And this is as fast as it goes. It runs 2 meters a minute. Just sneak over and I'll show you. So the spray pattern is set to go about 8 inches before to start. So you have 4 G40 heads, 713 tips, and we're gonna have somewhere between 4 and 5 wet mills on this coating. This is catalyzed. Let's start feeding the doors. I opened the lift gates. I'm going to show you how to measure the coating. This is a wet mill gauge. You see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to put this down in this and count. 1. Can you see it? 4. It's really hard to see. Let me get in some light. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's right on. So it's 5 wet mills. And we're gonna go right to the curing oven. So a little better view of it.
And that is beautiful.
Okay, I'm on to my next set. The next color I have is a Manila, and this is a mist tint from the manufacturer. They ordered a linen color. My color chart's over here. So these are inset doors, so there's two problems that we have to go over. One, the color. This is what it's supposed to be. This is what it is. So what do? Can you go right on top of this, scuff this up and do a finish coat? You can. You definitely can. It's not what I would recommend, but you can do that. If you knew exactly what this coating was, it'd be a lot easier. But if you don't know this, a couple other steps. What I'm gonna do is I sanded the finish off. Now I got into their tinted primer. Now from their tinted primer, I'm going to reprime, tint it to the right color, as close to it as possible, and then top coat as necessary. But these are inset doors. Inset doors is one of those things that people screw up all the time, especially with light colors. Not so much this, but let's say you're doing simply white, Chantilly lace, anything with a yellow undertone to it, and you want to do inset doors. Inset doors has to be done the same gallon of paint, the same day, at the same time. Otherwise, you could have some variation in color. So we are spraying the body, the boxes, all at the same time, same day, same gallon of paint. I'm gonna box all 4 or 5 gallons together, and then I'm gonna separate it. I'll have Kremlins in the booth spraying, and I'll be spraying my G40 guns out here. Again, inset doors, same day, same time, same gallon of paint. It's a must do it. So when you're doing inset doors on site, you're doing a color correction. That's the one time that I may spray doors at the house, just because of that. If there are Chantilly lace simply white, one of those off-whites that has a yellow undertone, because that's where you're gonna get a lot of color corrections. I'm gonna spray these 4 to 5 wet mills prime. We'll see where that goes. And then I'm gonna top coat Renner 851, 10 sheen. This will be 4 wet mills twice, and we'll have a beautiful finish. It's about 11:30. We'll see how fast we can knock this out. When I do a finish like this, because these are really high quality cabinets, I'm going to let these air dry. And then I'm going to start this again tomorrow. I'm not gonna force dry this. I will give this as much time as possible. Force drying things is fine, it's good, but sometimes you just wanna give a little extra time and let nature take its course. And we're gonna let this nicely tighten up, follow manufacturer specs, exactly how it's done. High-end client, high-end cabinet shop, not messing around with this, especially inset and a custom color match. I'm actually gonna have the homeowner and the cabinet guy come here to approve this before I do my final top coat. Spray on. All right, I'm gonna run these drawers through. When you have a machine like this, you're gonna run smalls to big. So it's gonna be smalls, top down, all the way to the big ones over there. Watch the pattern.
Wipe it off. Watch it walk through.
Let's go check the thickness.
Get your mill gauge out here. And you can see the coating's just a little different. Look at the texture on it. That means we're not as wet. The coating could be a little cold. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is still fine, but I don't like how its coating is sitting down. So I'm gonna just run these, and then I'm gonna check the coating itself. I think it's too cold. When it's too cold, it condenses a little bit and it doesn't have its right flow. 2 options here. We can heat it up, which we don't have the time. We're gonna remix and just check how flowing it is. All right, I have the trim getting sprayed here. So all the lengths of trim are gonna get sprayed first. I don't know how long this would take by hand, but it would definitely take a lot longer than 3 minutes. Every piece you'd have to manipulate inside the booth, spin it, turn it. Much easier process to do. Trim runoffs are a great way to utilize a Prima, especially a long line like this. We could run 16 footers, no issue. You probably could run a 20-foot piece of trim if you could. This machine basically can fit anything 3.5 inches tall by 49 inches wide. That's the parameters without pushing it. You can push it a little higher. This thing could go up, and you can take the gates off the unit drive. But that's standard is about 3.5, maybe even 4 inches by 49 inches wide. This is 60-inch paper. I don't like to push it to the other side because you actually start to spray inside the filters, because the machine wants to start 8 inches off the edge of the piece, and that's marked out by this laser here. There's a laser in there. It will spray 8 inches past its furthest point, which you don't want to do because you'll really start mucking up the machine. But that's your trim run. That's one prime. I'm going to check this out. I'm going to let this again air dry overnight, and then I'm going to be spraying my top coats on this. Looking good. Now I'm at the other side of the machine, the end. There's a laser that runs between these two eyes that will stop the machine if I hit it. So if I'm doing this by myself, you could theoretically, and I do a lot, let this run to the end, stop the machine. But you don't want to stop, just like you wouldn't when you spray manually. You don't want to stop the machine in the middle of spraying. Just muck up your pattern. I have the dryers running at very low. They're about 25%, and the third heater isn't even on at all. This is basically letting it just nicely come up in temperature, giving it a little air, giving it a little gas, and that is all I want to do, because I really want to let this coating sit down nicely, as slowly as possible. This Centurion dries very fast anyway. I don't want to force dry it. I don't need to, and I have tomorrow to do the top coats. I really have all week to do the top coats, but in this setting, again, I'm going to let this sit down, manufacturer specs, and then come at this tomorrow. So this is the 1107. Coating. You can see you're about 4 minutes from the spraying, and just an air and a little bit of ambient heat. It's sitting enough for me to touch. You can see the finish.